Welcome to a world that promises magic, thrills, and lifelong memories. A world where roller coasters touch the sky, characters come to life, and every corner is designed to bring out your inner child. But beneath the cotton candy smiles and choreographed parades, there lies a darker truth, one of negligence, mismanagement, and at times, outright cover-ups. These are the true stories of what happens when theme park dreams become real-life nightmares. This is the dark side of theme parks. Action Park in New Jersey was not just a theme park. It was a chaotic experiment in thrill-seeking mayhem. It opened in 1978 and later dubbed the Accident Park. This venue seemed to have no rules, no boundaries, and little to no interest in safety.
There's nothing in the world like Action Park.
Baby, let me take you to the action park. Action.
Staffed largely by teenagers and overseen by a management team more focused on profits than procedures, Action Park quickly gained a reputation as the most dangerous amusement park in America. The rides weren't just risky, they were often flat-out deadly. Among the most notorious was the Alpine Slide, a concrete track that sent guests screaming down a mountain on sleds with faulty brakes. In 1980, a 19-year-old was killed when he was thrown from his sled and hit his head on rocks. The infamous tidal wave pool, chillingly named Grave Pool, claimed 3 lives by drowning over the park's lifetime. But the danger didn't stop with bad design. Action Park's executives allegedly forged insurance documents and bribed officials to keep the park running. Injuries were so common that employees were told not to bother recording them. In total, 6 people died at Action Park before it closed in 1996, and countless others walked away battered, bruised, and scared, both physically and mentally. It wasn't just a park, it was a perfect storm of poor engineering, non-existent oversight, and reckless ambition. If there was ever a case where fun literally turned fatal, it was Action Park. But our next story is a place that markets itself as the happiest place on earth, Disneyland. But on Christmas Eve in 1998, it became the scene of a tragedy that shattered its pristine image. The sailing ship Columbia, a full-scale replica of an 18th century vessel, was docking when a heavy metal cleat tore loose from the side of the ship. It flew like a missile into the crowd, striking 33-year-old Luan Phi Dawson in the head and fatally injuring him. His wife suffered severe facial trauma and a nearby employee's foot was crushed. The park had never seen a guest death like this before, one caused not by error, but by Disney's own negligence. And after that, what followed was perhaps more disturbing than the accident itself. Maintenance records later revealed the cleat had shown signs of stress for weeks, with bent bolts and loose fittings. Instead of addressing the hazard, Disney ignored it. After the accident, the company allegedly removed evidence, specifically the broken cleat and mooring rope, before authorities could begin the proper investigation. Cal OSHA hit Disneyland with its maximum fine of $12,500, which I personally do not think hit a dent in Disney's wallet. They also cited them for failure to train employees and misuse of equipment. It was the first significant crack in the illusion Disney worked so hard to maintain behind the scenes. Things were far from magical. Fast forward to 2003, and Disneyland would suffer yet another shocking incident, this time on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. On a warm September morning, the ride derailed inside a tunnel, killing 22-year-old Marcelo Torres and injuring 10 others. The crash was violent. The lead locomotive car slammed into the tunnel ceiling and came crashing down on the first passenger car, crushing Torres beneath it. He died from massive internal injuries. The investigation was damning. Disney had failed to properly tighten bolts on a locomotive axle during routine maintenance. It's as simple as that. Internal reports suggest that it wasn't just a mistake, it was a systematic failure. Cost-cutting measures imposed by upper management led to a culture of maintenance light, where preventative checks were skipped and problems were patched over instead of being fixed. Now, this was Disneyland's third major incident in 6 years. This time, however, Disney didn't hide it. They admitted fault publicly and paid a significant, though undisclosed, settlement amount to the Torres family. The park shut down Big Thunder Mountain for nearly a year to overhaul its safety protocols, but for many, the damage was already done. The happiest place on earth once again had shown its cracks. On July 5th, 2009, a pre-dawn collision had rocked Walt Disney World once again's monorail system. Two trains, the Monorail Pink and the Monorail Purple, were on intersecting tracks when they collided head-on. The crash killed 21-year-old Austin Winterberg and injured multiple guests and employees. The horror of the accident was matched only by the realization that it was entirely preventable. A manager had authorized the track switch remotely, failing to confirm its position visually, however. The result was a catastrophic oversight that turned Disney's futuristic transportation system into a fatal wreck. In the days that followed, Disney rushed to settle with the Winterberg family, who received once again an undisclosed amount in the settlement. OSHA levied fines for serious safety violations and cited Disney again for poor supervision. One of the most disturbing revelations at this time? Well, the supervisor in charge that night was reportedly off-site, giving instructions over the phone from a restaurant he was at. Disney moved quickly to change its policies, ending guest access to the front cab and introducing stricter safety procedures, but the story remained. A well-oiled machine had failed because of human error, lax enforcement, and a dangerous culture of complacency. We may have talked a lot about Disney World and Disneyland, but let's talk about another world that many of you are familiar with. In February 2010, SeaWorld Orlando was thrust into the international spotlight for all the wrong reasons. During a routine interaction with an orca whale, Tilikum, trainer Don Brancheau was suddenly pulled into the water and killed in front of a live audience. The attack was gruesome and swift. Tilikum grabbed her by her ponytail, dragged her into the pool, and thrashed her until her body was broken beyond recognition. But the real horror came after. It was revealed that the orca whale, Tilikum, had a known history of aggression and had been involved in 2 previous deaths before this one. SeaWorld, in a desperate bid to protect their image, initially blamed Brancheau, suggesting that her ponytail had provoked the attack. Whistleblowers soon emerged, accusing the company of downplaying the risks and failing to implement proper safety protocols. OSHA launched an investigation and slapped SeaWorld with citations for willful violations. Court battles followed, although SeaWorld fought back. Public trust was eroded. You probably all remember about this, especially after the release of the documentary Blackfish, which exposed years of dangerous practices and corporate cover-ups. And in the end, trainers were permanently barred from entering the water with orcas, and SeaWorld's image was forever tarnished. Now, if we're going to talk about theme parks, we have to talk about a place that me personally, I have had a season pass to. I've went over 20, maybe 30 times in one summer. I've spent a lot of time here, and that is, Six Flags. On June 21st, 2007, it was supposed to be a day of thrills for 13-year-old Caitlin Lassiter at Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom, but instead it became a waking nightmare. While riding the Superman Tower of Power, a high-tension cable snapped and wrapped around her legs mid-ride. In the chaos that followed, both of Caitlin's feet were severed. Yes, cut completely off. The ride was not stopped immediately, and emergency protocols were poorly executed. Further complicating her injuries, doctors managed to reattach one foot, but the other was lost forever. The thing about Six Flags is they do employ a lot of people who are in high school and teenagers. So serious events like this, they could be undertrained for something like that. What do you do when someone loses their foot? I mean, you contact your manager, but this is definitely an odd situation. Now, they did launch an investigation, and the investigation found damning evidence. Not only had the ride itself shown signs of wear, but operators also failed to respond appropriately. Now, of course, Six Flags denies responsibility. In fact, they blame the cable manufacturer and the ride designers. They eventually did settle with Caitlin's family out of court, and the state of Kentucky then also fined the park $1,000. Yes, just $1,000 fine, barely a slap on the wrist, more like a tap on the finger. But that was the legal maximum. Caitlin's story is a haunting example of how a single failure in maintenance and procedure can alter a life in an instant, and how corporations often prioritize legal shields over moral responsibility. So if we're going to talk about Six Flags, let's get into Six Flags. Another story with Rosa Esparza. Sorry if I say her name incorrectly. She just wanted to enjoy a ride with her family in July 2013 when she boarded the Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas, unaware that it would be her last ride. Witnesses say Rosa expressed concern that her lap bar wasn't secure. She was told that it was fine, you'll be okay. And moments later, as the coaster hurled down its first drop, well, Rosa was ejected from the car and fell to her death. The ride had no seatbelts and used lap bars that didn't even properly account for different body types, right? The restraints locked mechanically, but not even securely. What followed was a predictable round of, once again, finger pointing. Six Flags blamed the ride manufacturer, while others insisted that the ride was safe if operated correctly. The park quietly added seatbelts and a test seat for larger guests, but it was too little too late at that point. The Esparza family sued, and the case was settled out of court. Once again, Rosa's death was definitely preventable. It could have been prevented. It shouldn't have happened. And the changes made afterwards were an implicit admission of that fact. I mean, you're adding an additional seatbelt to the roller coaster. Why would that be the case if you figured that there was nothing wrong? This was in fact another case where failure to account for basic human safety cost someone their life. The Verrückt waterslide at Schlattenbarn in Kansas City was supposed to be a marvel. It was supposed to be the tallest slide in the world, but what it did become was a death trap. In August 2016, 10-year-old Caleb Schwab rode Verrückt with 2 other guests. As the raft went over the second hill, it became airborne and Caleb was, well, decapitated by a metal hoop supporting the ride's safety net. It was one of the most horrifying and preventable theme park deaths in history. Investigations revealed a slew of red flags. I mean, there was faulty engineering, there was ignored safety standards, and there was a rush to complete the slide for publicity's sake. Internal communications showed that the designers knew that it was dangerous and that injuries had occurred before, but they were brushed under the rug. After Caleb's death, Schlattenbahn was hit with criminal indictments. Although some charges were later dropped, the park did settle with Caleb's family for a nice $20 million. Verrückt was dismantled, but the scar it left on the industry and on those who trusted it remains. In July 2021, the Jaramillo family climbed aboard the raging river ride at Adventureland in Iowa. What was supposed to be a relaxing, cool, chill float turned deadly when their raft suddenly overturned. 11-year-old Michael Jaramillo was trapped underwater, still seatbelted in. His father tried to save him, even as his own shoulder snapped. Michael's older brother was also nearly killed. Staff were slow to respond, rafts continued floating by, and the emergency shutdown came, well, far too late. This wasn't the first death on the raging river. An employee had died in 2016 before, and state inspectors had flagged numerous safety violations on the day of Giramillo's incident. The ride had already been malfunctioning previously. Instead of closing it down, the park kept it open because they needed to make money for the peak weekend crowds. Locked gates even delayed ambulances from reaching the scene. The ride was permanently shut down and the park was sold to new owners. But the questions remain. How many warnings need to be ignored before accountability even kicks in? For the Jaramillos and too many others, that answer came too late. Theme parks promise escape and happiness, an experience like no other where you can enjoy time with your family, but these stories show the steep price of ignoring danger, from neglected bolts and fraying cables and to cover-ups and misdirection. What lies beneath the surface is often far more chilling than any haunted house. Safety must never be an illusion, because when the illusion breaks, it doesn't just ruin the magic, it ends lives. This has been the dark side of theme parks. Stay cautious, stay curious. I'll see you guys later.